Welcome back, everybody, to the Freelance Network Podcast, a podcast by content creators for content creators. So I am Luke, joined with my co-host Will.
Hello.
And then today we have a very special guest.
Yes,
a
first time on here.
A new branch of creating.
Yes.
But Anthony, this is Anthony Salzarulo. Anthony, why don't you tell us what you do?
Sure. So my name's Anthony. I am a graphic designer in something called the Overwatch League, which is an esports professional gaming league. And I work for a team called the Florida Mayhem as their graphic designer.
That's awesome. So before we get into that stuff, because that is incredibly cool,
Yes.
I want to start off with how we met, because part of like the Freelance Network Podcast is meeting people and networking.
Mm-hmm.
And we all met in high school because we all took TV production together.
Yes.
And the first time I met you, I was basically just told, like, this kid's a whiz at graphics. I was like, for real? And, like, you were 2 years younger than us. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's see. And, like, it was the Christmas parade.
Yeah.
And we were on a bus. We were on our mobile bus studio.
Yeah.
And I walk on, and you had already made all the graphics for the entire day. You're just sitting there, like, cracking your fingers. Like, I'm like, who is this sophomore in high school? It's better than our teacher at graphics. No offense, Miss Lucas. You're great. But I just, from that moment, I was like, he's going somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know where. I don't, but it's going to be sick. So,
Thank you.
so then why don't we talk a little bit about, like, your journey? Because I know graphic design is something we haven't really talked about a lot
Yeah.
on this, but it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, how did you choose graphic design, or did it, like, kind of come to you?
It kind of came to me. I was always really interested in art when I was younger, but I really struggled at traditional art, so like painting or drawing. I really always struggled with that, but I had a lot of creativity, so I wanted to try and channel that in a different way. When I was younger, I wanted to be. I will probably get into more of this later, but I wanted to be like an esports player in some type of thing. And when I realized that was more unrealistic, my fallback option was graphic design and see where that could take me. So. I kind of always had that in my back pocket. I always worked on graphic design while I was trying to become like an esports player. Like I would do design for whatever game I was playing at the time, along with doing stuff in school for design, and then trying to do more real life stuff. I had a couple freelance jobs that I would do with design and make logos and work with local companies. So it was kind of just always there. It was kind of just always my solid, like, I knew I could do this if, my pipe dream didn't work out. And, what I do now is still really awesome and like a dream to me.
Yeah. So do you remember, like, the moment, like, when you first started doing this? Like, it doesn't have to be, like, the exact first moment, but, like, when you kind of realize, wait, like, this is something I can do? Like, because, I mean, what programs did you start on and stuff?
So I started on a really old version of Adobe Photoshop, and I can answer both of those questions because I remember the exact moment I started designing and when I realized, okay, this is something. So I started back in my freshman year of high school. I was making YouTube videos on Minecraft, and I wanted to make thumbnails eventually. I needed to like up my content. I wanted thumbnails to exist on my videos. So I didn't know anyone who could make them. My friend was like, why don't you just make your own? I was like, that's a really good idea. So I just decided to make my own thumbnails, and they were horrible, but they were something, and it got me making them. And then when I realized I could probably do something with this was once I was making like my own thumbnails and stuff, I could see the progression of myself getting better, and I always kind of enjoyed doing it. But once I started doing stuff for my other friends who didn't have Photoshop or were trying or didn't want to do it or didn't know how to do it, and they would commission me to make them stuff, that's when I was like, oh wait, I can make money off this. I can do this as like a career option if I really wanted to.
So that's when it was like, oh god, this
Yeah.
is real.
This is real.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, this is cool.
I gotta say, I love that it's Minecraft. That
Yeah.
Minecraft is the best game ever.
Well,
It
'cause,
is.
like, we're like the generation that grew up with Minecraft. Where,
Yeah.
like, we were kids when it came out,
Mhm.
but like we're still all like, like in our 20s, late teens,
Yeah.
playing it now. But we're totally gonna start a server later.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool. So like for you too, because I know you went to college at first.
Yeah.
Now, can you talk about, because this was a really tough decision to make when you decided to leave?
Yeah.
Because it's not that we're knocking education. We had a whole episode about why we think it's important,
Mhm.
but it's all about the person. So like for you, what was it like deciding that, like thinking like I need to move on from this?
So I hate to like whenever I tell this, I try to like preface it with like I don't want to sound cocky. Like I worked very, very hard to get to where I was before college. So when I went into college, I kind of knew what I was doing already with all the graphic things that they were showing me. It was very basic. It was very stuff that, I learned when I was like 14. A lot of my classes, all the students were more based in traditional art, although, they were all majoring in like design. They all had backgrounds in like painting or drawing or etc. And, I had no background in that. And my background was doing all this design stuff that I already knew how to do. And something that, is a really big part of me is I hate wasting time. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. So every time I would walk into like a 6-hour class, I would just it would take forever because the whole time I would just feel like it's wasting time. I know how to do this. I could make it better. I could do whatever I wanted. So like day one of college classes, I called my mom. I was like, this is not going to work. And she was, of course, like, this is going to work. Like, you're going to make this work. But I knew day one, like, this is not for me. And it was kind of just convincing my parents eventually to let me take a gap year. Let me see what I could do. Maybe this just isn't the right college. I could try different education paths. And eventually I've completed my whole freshman first semester. And then I went back for my second semester. And I had like my first like legit graphic design class, not just like all the prelim stuff. And I really didn't like my teacher at all. I didn't like how she was teaching. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, this is it. I'm going to come home. I'm going to try. I'll do like online school, which I did for a bit. And then I kind of I applied to a couple other schools. I almost went to Pratt in New York for school. And then I just ended up working locally for a bit while doing Full Sail online. And I just felt like that worked better for me. And then once I got the job that I have now, it didn't really make sense to continue putting money into schooling when I already had like basically my dream job. So, I still have all the credits that I have if I ever wanted to go back, if something didn't work out. But where I'm at right now, I think it was definitely like college just wasn't for me. Like it just wasn't my thing at the time.
Well, I think it's really cool because a lot of people are afraid to admit that to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like a lot of people would have just stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't want to like disappoint like their parents or even their friends because they're like, my friends are getting a degree, I should get a degree too,
Mm-hmm.
and no one wants to be like, okay, I can like step away.
Yeah, it's a big risk. It's a super big risk.
But also, I mean, it's not going to pay out like it did for you every time.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
it paid out.
100%.
Yeah.
Can you describe to us like how you landed your first major job post, school and all that?
Yeah. So originally, before I started working with the Mayhem, I worked with a local company called Creative Click Media. Which was super close by, and it worked out really well. I just, I applied. They really liked my portfolio at the time, which I just, I built my portfolio off doing freelance stuff, all throughout. I started doing freelance stuff when I was like 15. So I had I had like a decent portfolio already. And they took a chance on me, even though I didn't have the education, and I knew that there would be some type of company that would do that eventually. I got pretty lucky. They did it pretty early on into like application stuff, and I really liked working there. But I really liked working in the beginning because it was just new and interesting, like to actually, be in an office, like making graphic design, like it's an actual job, like this is a full-time thing that I'm doing. And then that kind of like started to wear off a bit. Like it kind of got repetitive. I wasn't as into like corporate designing stuff. It kind of wasn't my feel. It was a little too like, a lot of it was like more structured. You didn't have a lot of creativity in it. And then the other thing was that a lot of it is like time-based. They only have certain hours that you can work on their stuff, so you can't like put in your all into a lot of things. So yeah, once I realized like maybe this isn't like, maybe I couldn't do just corporate for like 20 years, I started looking to do other things. But I was working that job for almost a year, I think, from like I think like 8 months or so I was working that, which was really good, and it gave me a lot of experience to put on my resume too.
So then after that, what was your next step?
So I was really into Overwatch at the time. I got into Overwatch while I was in college. I had a good friend of mine from when I played Minecraft a lot, and he ended up becoming a player in the Overwatch League, and I wanted to support him. I didn't know anything about Overwatch at the time. I was just like, what's this cool thing? I want to support my friend. So I started watching. I had no idea what was going on, but I got really into the league. So I just started making like fan art for, the Overwatch League teams. And when I got kind of more serious about it was when I realized maybe corporate design like isn't my thing for the rest of my life. So I looked a bit more into Overwatch and what I could do like design wise. And Overwatch League has like, similar to baseball, how there's like the major leagues and AAA, there's like a AAA kind of system very similar to that, with Overwatch called the Path to Pro. And I took one of the lower level teams there, and just started making fan art for them, just knowing that they would probably see it. And they really liked it. So I ended up doing stuff for them, and, I ended up doing stuff for another team and another team, another team. At some point I was doing 4 teams at once.
Wow.
Which was very, very, it was a lot of work. But a lot of people in the community ended up being able to like get to know me and was like, hey, this person's really good at design. Like, so I had a lot of people backing me in the community, which was really good. And the whole time during this, except for the last like 3 or so weeks, I was working full time too. So I was doing 9 to 5 design stuff, and then I would basically go home and I would do design from like 5:30 to 11 on Overwatch stuff, and then rinse and repeat every day. And it was a lot. And there were days where I was like, oh my God, like, is this even going to be worth it at the end of it? But it ended up working out. The Florida Mayhem, a couple weeks. I quit my job in January 4th, I believe. And I told myself I had enough money for like 6 months. Like I could live on my own for 6 months. I could see where this takes me. And about a month in, the Florida Mayhem had a job opening. A lot of people in the community recommended me publicly. And a couple people within the Mayhem organization had seen my work, so they also recommended me. The president of the Florida Mayhem reached out to me. They're like, hey, Anthony, a lot of people recommended you to us. I really like your work. Let's talk. And I basically I skipped like the whole interview process, and it was basically like make us some art that I think we're going to go in this style for next year, make some art based on what we're going to do next year. And if we don't totally hate it, you're on. I was like, okay. So
I mean, that works.
yeah, I was like, cool. So I made the stuff, and then they liked it, and March 1st I flew out to California.
Which it's funny because I was in California March 8th.
Yeah.
I remember texting you like, bro, like we're in California at the same time. Like, what the heck?
It's crazy.
I know, it was wild. It just happened to be like my spring break was like when you first moved out there. And we were gonna meet up, but you had Overwatch stuff to do.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was
working,
doing.
man.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That's crazy though. And like something that you touched on where like you were doing the 9 to 5 and working like afterwards, like talk about like how you got to this point, because it's like, trust me, like we said this before, like Will and I have basic Photoshop skills, but like then what you know how to work the ins and outs of Photoshop.
Yeah.
So like,
like you know how to like do like everything in it from like I think I know a lot about it, but I just don't know a lot about it. I just watch YouTube videos to like learn.
Yeah, but like what I'm curious about is like what kind of work did you put in to get to that point? Because I mean, like you said, you've been doing it since 14.
Yeah.
So like, because to us, it's such a foreign thing, even though we use it. Yeah. Imagine people who've never even touched graphic design, you know? Because it's also slept on.
Yes.
It's slept on so
Yes,
hard.
it is.
Pay your artists.
Pay your artists, 100%.
Whether they're graphic designers or artists.
Anyone. Yeah. Yes, pay your artists, 100%. I've always had a very addictive personality. My parents always joked that they were very glad that I didn't do drugs because I get addicted to something very fast. So when I played Minecraft a lot, I would play like, 14 to 18 hours a day, like that, like no break, nothing, just straight ahead on. And while I was like doing that, I always had like a crazy work ethic with whatever I really enjoyed doing. So I would put in the time to learn these things. So once I realized like Minecraft wasn't really the way to go, those 8 to 10 hours at that point, and then I was probably splitting my time like 8 hours Minecraft, like 8 hours design stuff a day. I just kind of cut out Minecraft for a bit and probably did like 16 hours of design stuff a day on like whenever I didn't have anything to do. It would just literally be just design. And it helped me just learn really everything. I'm self-taught in everything that I do. I don't normally look at like YouTube stuff. How I like to learn it is just mess around with it as much as I possibly can, and just try and make it work. And just try and improve on a concept. Or like what I'll like to do is if I see a design, I'll do this a lot now with like sports stuff. Like if I see a design that I really like, I'll try and pick it apart and be like, okay, how did they do this? Like what avenue did they go to? Like what would be the easiest way to do this? So that was a big thing for me. But I put in like a ridiculous amount of time into design stuff. And I think one thing that really sticks out to me, one of the days that really sticks out, is while I was still working at my job. This was probably like November. It was kind of slow, like at the 9 to 5 job, and I had a lot of time, and I was behind on some Overwatch stuff because I wanted to do about 45 different animated scorecard templates, which was really stupid. And I've learned a lot more how to like balance my work and what's worth the amount of time I'm gonna put in. But at that point, I really didn't know, and I was just like, I want this to look like amazing. I want to be better than all the Overwatch teams, blah blah blah. And so what I did is I brought in my drive that I had with all my Overwatch stuff to work, and I would just sit, and while I was doing my normal work 9 to 5, I would also be rendering all these templates out during work, and it was a ridiculous process. So I had a laptop at the time that would do that, and then I had to go home after, and then I was rendering them on both my laptop and my computer at the same time in preparation for the game. Yeah, for the game tomorrow morning. So it was insane. But I always tried to put in as much time as I possibly could, and it definitely all paid off. I'm really happy, with all the stuff that I've done, and it's crazy to look back, like, that was like literally like almost a year ago, to the day.
Yeah.
And it's, my work has improved so much just since then, and I was so happy with the stuff at the time too. And it's just the art community in Overwatch too has just improved so much from, what I like to think that I had a big impact in, which is really, really cool.
I want to know, where does the motivation for that come from? Like, obviously, like, this is like your dream job, and it makes sense you're working towards that. But like, at that point, you had just been working for minor league teams. So like, where did you find the motivation to do that every day?
Honestly, there's two answers to this. The first answer is when I wanted to I wanted to go pro in Minecraft, like legit. I wanted to be like a competitive Minecraft player. That obviously did not happen because you can't do that. It's not a viable job field.
I think that was like all of our dreams. Like, I'm going to play Minecraft the rest of my life. I'm going to make millions off it.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wanted to be like a competitive Minecraft player, and I was really damn good. There was a time in my life where I was genuinely like the best in the world for like a 7-month period, but it doesn't matter because you can't make money off it. So once I realized that, and that I couldn't have that, I like vowed to myself that I would never let that happen again. Like, I was going to live like my dream, period. And I guess the other part is like, I just could never imagine myself doing like working like retail. Like, I just couldn't. Like, that didn't process in my head. Like, I would rather anything. Like, it was not a possibility. So I did everything in my power to not have to do that. And, that's why I did freelance stuff. I tried to make as much money as I could, so I didn't have to worry about doing things like that. And even now, like, I'm very lucky to do what I do. And a lot of other designers have come to me, specifically in Overwatch, like, for assistance, like, how did you get into this? How did you get to where you are? And there's a lot of people trying to do exactly what I did. It's called the path to pro for players, but it works for coaches, for staff members, for designers too. And unfortunately, I have been, as of right now, the only designer to come from the path to pro in Overwatch to like the Overwatch League at the highest level. And there's so many designers that deserve it. And, I see this a lot in tier 1 esports in general, that people just kind of take what they have for granted. And I hate that. Like, I could not imagine not like putting in 110% of your energy, like, all the time into you're living a dream of thousands of other people. Like, don't take that for granted. Do everything you can to enjoy it every single time. And I never want to lose that passion for what I do.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, it's like right now we're sitting here, me and Will, like, Will's college still. I'm working a couple part-time jobs. Like, you work in video games. Like, you work for esports. Like, that is like a dream in itself. But you looked like you wanted to ask a question earlier.
Yeah, like, so with like your graphics and all that, how you got like your name out, were you making a whole lot of them for free for people, or were you having them like pay you to like do them? Like, how did you get your name out there to show your work?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. I think something that really helped me a lot is that I picked the right people to make free stuff for. So I did commissions and stuff for people, obviously, who didn't didn't have a name or anything, and people would, I would make money off that. But I think some of the things that really, really helped me get to where I am with Mayhem was I picked the right people to make design stuff for. Because there's really big people in Overwatch, right? There's people with 100,000 plus followers who play Overwatch. But if I make them fan art, like, they're never going to see it. I have a much less of a chance of them seeing it. But, if I pick a player who's still popular, maybe they have 8,000 followers, right? And if I make something for them, they'll probably see it because they're not going to get as much fan art and stuff, and they'll really appreciate it. So it was kind of just picking and choosing the right people. And one of those people, his name is Damon. His username was Apply. And I made him stuff in October of last year. And it was for he got graduated up basically to the Florida Mayhem, like their full level team. And this is obviously way before anything with me with Florida. And making stuff for him for free, like he retweeted, he really liked it. I just kind of made him fan art, like congratulations, here's a Twitter header or whatever. And that stuck with him. And he was one of the people that helped me get the job that I have now. Like he was one of the people that talked to John, like, hey, this guy's really, really good at what he does. Like he could be an asset for us with the Mayhem. So, it's just picking the right people, getting your name out there. And then another thing to answer your question is with the teams that I worked with in the Path to Pro, how it works is that there's unsigned teams and then there's something called academy teams, which is Overwatch League teams have like the literal like AAA affiliate of their team. And then half the teams are that. And then about the other 50% are teams of just 6 random dudes who just want to try and get better at the game and make a name for themselves. So I would always work for those teams because, it was easier. And I was able to get my name out that way through that. And I never even wanted them to pay me because my whole thought process is they're not getting paid either, right? Like they're just following their dream. I'm not going to make them pay for me when they're just trying to do the same thing as me. And if we all work hard enough, you're going to get to where you want to be anyway. So it all worked out. And a lot of the time I wasn't making money off of the design stuff I was doing for Overwatch. And that's why I also worked the 9-to-5 job during, 90% of it.
It was to sustain what you wanted.
Exactly.
To do. Yeah.
It was I needed it to keep doing what I wanted to do.
So we've mentioned Florida Mayhem a bunch of times now, but
Yes.
I think it's time to get into it and be like you told us like a little bit how you got the job, but walk us through like what you do there. Like,
Yeah.
As you can go as simple as you want or complex,
So
this is your time to flex, bro.
yeah, so it's changed definitely a lot since I've gotten there. So in the beginning, it was very much more of who is this random 19-year-old that we just hired? What the hell is he gonna do for us? Let's just like keep him on a really short leash and not have him do anything. So in the beginning, I was kind of just like mirroring whatever they wanted me to do, like very do whatever they want. And I think I'll explain this in the Overwatch League is split into 4 stages during the regular season. It's basically just a way to like keep interest throughout the whole season. So during stage 1, that was my first stage with them, and I joined basically right while that was starting. So all my stuff was very simple. When stage 1 started, when I was with them, I was still in New Jersey at the time. I hadn't moved to California yet, so time zone differences. I didn't have a lot of freedom at all to do what I wanted to do. So I kind of just mirrored what they wanted to say. And stage 1 was some of the stuff that I hated the most. I hated what I made in stage 1. And then we had a bit of a break, in between the stages going into stage 2. And we decided to change up the style a bit. Originally, it was like very comic book-esque, and we continued that into stage 2. But it was kind of a little bit more aggressive, and I had a lot more freedom of what I wanted, like the comic book style to be, instead of it being like this traditional like 1950 style. Like I kind of wanted it to have my own flair on it. So stage 2 is still to this day some of the most fun stuff that I made. And stage 2 is also a very big lesson for me in learning what is realistic for you to do and what isn't. I think the number was like 380 something, like animated templates for 7 games. Out of 7 games, there's 380 templates, and 90% of them never saw the light of day. They were all just templated, just like in case, because they were all different score outcomes, right? So it would be like, a 4-0, 3-1, 3-2, like whatever. And then I had different templates for if we're winning or losing, if we won or lost the game. And in stage 2, we didn't win a single game. So we went 0-7. So all the win graphics never got shown.
Wow.
So it was a very big lesson for me in like balance your time better in things, because I put like an insane amount of time into all that for 90% of it to never be seen. So I definitely learned a lot from doing that, and putting more value in less is more if I can make it higher quality with less kind of things. Then we had a bigger break for like middle of the season going into stage 3, and then we changed our style again. At this point, I was not the biggest fan of us changing styles, because I kind of wanted us to stay consistent. I didn't really have a lot of say in that, because again, I'm not a creative director, I'm not an art director, I'm just a designer. So I didn't have that much say. But we did it was more like grungy. We had a lot of smoke elements. It was very very like aggressive, which was really cool. And it was definitely like a fun style to work with. And at that same time, we were releasing new jerseys. Like we had like an alternate jersey, and we were able to do them in like Miami Vice color scheme. So that was really cool.
Those jerseys were so
They're
sick.
really, really cool. And I got to do like a whole like kind of separate style along with like our main colors are red and yellow, and we also had like the Vice stuff, so we were kind of doing both of that at the same time. So it was cool to like do the same style in 2 different color schemes and kind of see how they match. So that was really fun. And then in stage 4, it was a little bit different. My laptop actually, completely broke down. I was in New Jersey for a bit just to visit family, and my laptop broke at like the worst possible time. So we had to bring in another designer to kind of help us out while I didn't have a computer. And they kind of set the style for stage 4 along with the creative director. So stage 4 was a lot more of me just kind of following their lead and stuff. Oh, I completely blanked on something. So in stage 3, or in the Overwatch League, they have something called homestands, which are in the Overwatch League right now, or last season, they played all the games in the same place in an arena in Los Angeles. The homestands they did once a stage, and that was supposed to be like in preparation for in 2020 when all the games are going to be traveling. And we had our only homestand game of the season was in Atlanta at the end of stage 3. So I had a lot of creative freedom with that, which I really enjoyed because I wanted to do something really special. So I got to make like a whole like branding style around the games we played in Atlanta. Unfortunately, we lost both of them, but yeah, it was really cool to kind of make all these different styles, and that's probably still some of my favorite stuff that I made with Mayhem. And then after stage 4, which I didn't really have that much say in, it was kind of just templating the stuff that was already made. A lot of my stuff now has kind of just been in preparation for next year because I want next year to be, I want it to honestly be like as groundbreaking as possible. I've tried to really push my say as much as I can, probably farther than I should. And it's been really fun because I think something in Overwatch that really stinks compared to other, like I always like to compare Overwatch to League of Legends because League of Legends to me is like the top of anything. Like it's definitely like the top esport. The graphics are the best, the videos are the best, and so I always try to compare it to what League does and what traditional sports do. And I think Overwatch compared to League of Legends in design and in just creative stuff in general is so far behind. There's a lot of teams that you can just tell like don't care at all, don't have a designer, don't want to pay anyone, and just put out like honestly just like total garbage. And it's like honestly like at some points it gets like really embarrassing, and I never want the league to look like that. So I don't have control of what 5 of the worst design teams do. So my job is to just make them look even worse with what I'm going to do with Mayhem. And that's kind of just my goal at this point. And I really want to model it after like traditional sports, how if you ever look at like a Twitter of like an NFL team or like a basketball team, like you'll see they have like these motion graphics, like, randomly through the game, like touchdown, interception, whatever. And I really want to do that and try and incorporate that into Overwatch, like full hold, big shatter, whatever, and do really cool things with that. And that's kind of been my really big project over the offseason, is trying to figure out how to make all these things that are seen in traditional sports, now that I have a full offseason with the Mayhem, to really like double down on making stuff that just has never been seen in esports, period, which has been a really challenging task, but it's been really fun.
I think it's cool too because like this is like the beginning of Overwatch because this is going to be their 3rd season starting in January,
Yes.
right? So like they made the move. It was all in LA, and then now they are all in their own like actual cities. Some are getting their own arenas. I know Philly's building one,
Yeah.
and like other big cities are thinking about building facilities to host them, and like colleges are thinking about it too.
Yeah.
So it's like rapidly growing.
Yes.
It's cool that you're part of that movement.
Exactly.
You know?
Like it's crazy. Like, I remember watching the preseason games, just getting into Overwatch, like in my college dorm.
Yep.
And I watched every single game season 1. I made it a point to watch every single game in season 1. And it's just crazy to see, like, I remember when I originally moved to California, like just going to the arena was like mind blowing. It's like I've watched hundreds of games in this arena and now I'm here.
Although, you know what, I gotta say this right now too, because it's like the elephant in the room. I think you know I'm gonna say you became like a known person within the Overwatch because you always had the yellow Florida Mayhem jersey on. It would be a crowd of people. It would mostly be like LA teams, like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Anthony sitting
There's
in the
me.
front row, and like you had a Minecraft sword sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing memes of you.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm like, I went to high school with him, and
Yeah.
now he's got memes within the Overwatch, and nice memes. It wasn't memes.
No, yeah,
that
it
was
was
the
really,
best part.
That was something I've always really like prided myself on is I always wanted to like brand myself. I wanted to be just a person. I didn't want to be like this static, Overwatch designer person who doesn't, is a robot. Like I like being a person in the community, and I like helping out others, like try to get to where I am. And it's, when I moved to California, I had like maybe like I think I had like 1,000 followers at the time, and within like a couple weeks I had like almost 2,000 just from like, who is this random dude in the Florida Mayhem jersey every single time, every game in a Florida Mayhem jersey. And one of the games that I remember was like they call it the Battle of LA. There's 2 Los Angeles teams, and they're
just like every other sport.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And one of the teams is purple, the LA Gladiators, and I had a lot of friends who cheer for the LA Gladiators. So I came in late because the Mayhem game was after, and I end up just squeezing in the front row with like all these fans in just bright purple, and then there's just me in a yellow jersey, just completely stood out. And it was one of the pictures that it like really was like, who the hell is this person? And it kind of took off from there, and it's been really. The other thing that's crazy is, when I was doing Minecraft, like YouTube, like I never was like anyone, I think my highest subtotal was like 500-ish, which, I was very proud of, but that's nothing. Like that's nothing. So while I was, doing all this design stuff, I wanted to be like a streamer, a person that was entertaining and could help you out and also, not be boring. So seeing myself grow in that way and kind of achieving things that I wanted to do through YouTube just through design is really, really cool to me.
So if you like went back like a year ago today, would you have ever expected to travel to California, be able to like live the dream, what you're doing right now?
A year ago today, probably, because that was a year ago today was like I was really just starting to get into like doing more stuff in the, I'll call it the tier 2 scene, the path to pro. And one of the things that actually really helped me out with that. So as I started with one team, and then I didn't really know how to say no. So another team reached out to me and was like, hey, why don't you do stuff for us? They had 2 players that I really liked watching in tier 2. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do stuff for you too. So I got to the point where I was working with 2 at once, which was still manageable. And then I reached out before the second team reached out to me. I reached out to another team because I was like, I want to see if I can do 2 at once. So then eventually they got back to me while I was already working with 2. And I'm like, well, now I can't back out because I'm already working. I already wanted this. And they were probably one of the more popular teams at the time, so I had to take it. So I was working with 3 at once. And then while that was happening, there was 2 very prominent people in the Overwatch community who were trying to create their own like path to pro team, like completely from scratch. They didn't have a name, they didn't have a logo, and they wanted me to come on and help co-found it and like basically be the creative director of it. And that was really cool. That team ended up being called Triumph. I came up with the name. I came up with the logo. We did YouTube videos for it that I all made. I did all the graphics. And if it wasn't for Triumph, which I probably right about now, a year ago, I was just starting to get off the ground. I definitely would not be here. Triumph was probably the biggest team out of the 4 that helped me get to where I was now. And it was a really cool concept because it helped me just, everything was, I had a say in, like literally everything. And it was really cool just going from that and moving on and then seeing how it's grown and how all these teams have grown since I've left, and, trying to recommend people who I knew to try and get them in these positions. Like it's been really cool in a lot of different ways. So a year ago, yes. 2 years ago in college, absolutely not. Oh my God, no way.
Sitting in that dorm room thinking like, I want to go home. I hate this.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's like 2 years later,
It's
like you lived in
crazy.
LA, now you live in Florida.
Yeah.
Like that's insane, dude.
It's crazy. Like I think like dude, college was so weird to me. And like I think like, what was I doing like 2 years ago, like in college? And it was just, I'm so glad like I'm where I am now. Like it was just completely different time. I would have never guessed.
Yeah. And another thing too is like, if you could give yourself like a piece of advice, like 2 years ago, you're sitting in that dorm room and you're just like, man, I hate school. Be like, listen, younger Ant, like you're going to be fine, but know this, like, what would you tell yourself?
Know this. I would probably just say like, just keep going. Like there were a lot of times where I would think just like, is this really going to be worth it? Like, is it like, I can remember going to bed at my dad's multiple times being like, this is not going to end up working out. Like there's no way. And I just had to like just keep pushing as hard as I could and just put like everything I had into this, and I honestly just put everything I had. I remember like when I got, so esports is weird in a lot of ways because it's not as flushed out as a lot of different things. So people will ghost you all the time, like, hey, we want you, and then just never, respond to you ever again. Or they'll promise you things that are never going to happen or never get back to you, or, they'll like make you really scummy contracts or whatever. So esports is really fishy in that way. So there were a lot of times where people would tell me things and I would get like way too hyped up and think like, oh my God, this is finally it. And I would just like get my hopes up and then just get completely let down. So that's probably another thing I'd tell myself. But like, I remember when someone from Mayhem officially DM'd me, I was like, this is actually it. Like, this is the one. You can't really fake being the president of the Florida Mayhem. Like, you're not going to do that. So that was like, oh my God, finally, like everything worked out. And I just like completely broke down. Like, that was crazy. That was really crazy to me. Like, everything was worth it.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and it's like, we've known you since high school. Like, you're one of the hardest working people I've ever met.
Thank you.
Like, by far.
Like, I remember making your backgrounds on the one Mac in the
Yeah.
studio, and it was just it was the Illuminati meme, and I thought that was the funniest thing in the world.
Well, because like you would just make like the funny Photoshop edits.
Yeah.
Like you would use our faces and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I would walk in because you guys had it second period, I had it third.
Yeah.
So I would walk in and be like, "What did Ant do today?" I'd like click all the computers, see which ones, and like sometimes I would leave requests. Like I'd leave a note and stick it to the computer. Yeah,
Oh my
and
God.
it's just funny thinking like back then, like the three of us knew each other. And, like,
Exactly.
here we are. Like, look at us.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Who would
Who'd
have
have thought?
Not me.
Not me.
I mean, I would have thought he would be doing this, but
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
But no, dude, I just remember too, like you made graphics for a couple of my videos, and I'm
Mhm.
like, this is sick. Like,
Yeah.
like because you were the only graphics person in the
Yes,
class.
I was.
Like,
Probably out of like the whole like program.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
'cause-
Well, now I think they have some.
Yeah,
but I
I-
think it's partially because of you though.
Yeah.
because they saw what you could do. Like it's like you said, you would DM those teams that didn't have as many followers.
Mhm.
It's the same exact principle where this program doesn't have graphic designers. If you know how to do graphic design, you get way more opportunities,
Yes.
and there's not as much competition to because like everybody wanted to host stuff or be anchors for stuff
Mhm.
because you could just no offense to anchors, there's a level of professionalism
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah.
But, like at high school, you can just do it.
Yeah.
But like for you couldn't just be like, yo, you want to make graphics for this event? Like no, like you have to know what you're doing. It was either the teachers or you. So like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really liked it, and it was cool. Like I went back recently to visit high school, and I was like, who do you have? Like, do you have a designer person? They do. It was really cool, like to just see like they have people now doing design stuff. And
I don't know if you saw the one project they did some like After Effects stuff.
No, I didn't. see
Yeah,
that.
it was
I'll have
really
to-
cool.
I'll
They
have to
did
go
like
see
a
it.
cartoon effect.
Oh, that's
like they
sick.
threw a paper airplane, and then like there was a trail on the plane following it.
That's
It
cool.
was so cool.
Yeah, that's really sick. But like TV helped me a lot because there wasn't like a graphic design class. Like there wasn't like just or like an Adobe class, right? Like that didn't exist. Like TV production was the closest thing I had to that. And I was really lucky that both the teachers were very cool with me not being as into the film stuff and not wanting to be on camera and kind of just let me do my own thing on the
Yeah.
computers, and it ended up working out well for both of us.
Exactly, and it's just like that led you on your path. Like all
Exactly.
of those people in that program, like if they stick with it, like I think they have a good shot because like those teachers just set us up to succeed, man.
Yeah,
they were
100%.
great.
It's so weird to think like how much the program has evolved really
Yeah.
since we left, and
Exactly.
even you left.
Yeah.
Like it just has grown so much.
Which
Yeah.
is really cool to see because like we were like the big group that was there that
Yes.
pushed it, like we went to board meetings to convince them to help fund it and stuff, and now here they are using all that gear. It's really cool to
It's
see.
awesome.
And then also like part of the point of this podcast is networking, and like this is it. I
Mhm.
mean like you learned in TV class, so you have skills within video production, which I'm sure has helped you along the way.
Oh,
too.
100%. 100%.
And like you work, you said that you live with Florida Mayhem's like video content creators
Yeah.
and stuff. So like that's super cool too. And like you have the background in it, but then you have your specialty too.
Exactly.
And then also like the three of us knew each other. Like I just reached out. I knew it was a long shot just because you're never home. Which
Yeah.
I don't blame you, dude. You lived in LA and then Florida. Then you come back to Jersey. Like I'm surprised you ever come back. But
Yeah.
but like it's just cool to see. And like I mean it's years later that we're all together. And it's just
Yeah.
awesome.
It's sick. I enjoy
Now,
it.
the next thing I kind of want to talk about is I want to get into esports a little bit because, like, we have somebody that works in esports now. So, like, where do you see like the future of the Overwatch League? Like, and like, I know that's such a broad,
Yeah.
it's super broad, but like, it's about to be in its third season. So, like, where do you think it's gonna go?
I think all of it really just depends on this year. Like I said, like the first 2 seasons were all in one arena, in a very small arena in, Burbank. And now it's going to be in 20 different cities across the world. And, there's going to be 300 plus games happening across the entire season. And it's going to be just insane. Like it's really going to, this season is really going to be like the big, what can we do? Is this sustainable? So it's really going to depend. I like to be optimistic about it, honestly. I really think it's in a good place right now. In the beginning of season 2, if you asked me that, I would have told you otherwise. But I think it's really grown, and Overwatch and Blizzard as a whole has really kind of improved the tier 1 model and, adding things that would really help it. And I think it really has a good chance for success. I think after this season, it'll be really interesting. But you see teams like Philly's team, like already building an arena.
Let's go Fusion.
Without like any idea if this is going to work or not. So you like to think that even if it doesn't work 100% like this year as much as you want, that teams are still going to just pour money into it because they already have poured so much money into it. So I think it's in a really good spot. I think specifically like Overwatch, like I think the franchise teams are a really cool way of doing it, especially to like incentivize people in North America to like, you can say like the Philadelphia 76ers and then you can say the Philadelphia Fusion. And it's really cool that you have a city-based team. And I really like that as someone who grew up really liking traditional sports. So I think like with League of Legends, Call of Duty, Overwatch, I think those are probably like the big 3 that I think can really do good. And then obviously there's like, Fortnite and stuff that'll just be there that doing really good. But I think the franchise ones will be really, really interesting.
Well, there was a moment for me where I was like, all right, Esports, I see you.
Yeah.
Because I get like a weekly email blast for Philly sports, and it's like, here's news about the Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, Eagles, Fusion. I was like,
that's
Fusion.
Really cool.
I was like, they were at the bottom of the email.
Still.
But still,
Yeah.
they were on there with those teams that have been around for so long. And I'm sure the other teams, like the LA teams, do it. Like Dallas probably does it.
Yeah.
Like the bigger teams, they would do that. Like I was like, wow. Like look at esports go. Like look
Yeah.
at them. And I'm so excited for it too because it opens up so many avenues for people like you and like I mean us growing up. We wanted to do stuff with video games. Like we still play video games all the time. We both just bought Switches on Black Friday. Whoops.
Best decision of my life. I mean, I won a whole lot of money on Scratch Off, so I was like, okay, I can throw it all in there.
Yeah, we're gonna stream eventually. We'll let you know when we do that.
The Freelance Gaming Network.
Freelance Gaming Network featuring Anthony.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that was really cool is when Grand Finals so Grand Finals of the Overwatch League happened in Philly. And it was really cool. They have something in Philadelphia called Localhost Philly, which is a LAN arena with like hundreds of computers. And one of the teams I worked with in Tier 2 was called Mirage, and one of the managers on that team lives in Philly and works now at Localhost full time. So I got in contact with him, and we had like a whole bunch of people end up going to this during the Grand Finals. Like we had a lot of like Overwatch people, like Tier 1 people, like coaches, players would come, and it was just really cool to like see it. And then they ended up, I think they're doing like a whole news show on like a local Philly station about like esports and stuff, which is really, really cool. Like all around like local hosts and all this stuff that's happened. I remember they were doing interviews at Grand Finals with a lot of people. So it's really cool to really see it in this public space. And even like over the course of like the last like 2 years, it's crazy. Like it's really crazy. Like growing up, like it was, when I was like 14, it was so less of a dream than it is now. Like now it's realistic and it's really cool.
Yeah. Now because I think we're getting close.
Yeah,
But before we're gone, I want you to tell the people that camera right there.
Yeah.
Because one, we didn't even talk about your streaming, so you can tell them about that. But shout yourself out. Tell them where they can find you.
All
and
the
what
social
you do,
medias,
including Mayhem and like whatever you want.
Yeah. So definitely, before anything, go follow the Florida Mayhem in the Overwatch League on Twitter. That's going to be FL Mayhem for Twitter for Florida. And then the Overwatch League is just Overwatch League on Twitter. You can definitely find that. Me personally, Antoine Please, ANTWNPLS on Instagram and Twitter and Twitch. I mainly just tweet stuff. I don't really use my Instagram. I need to really get on that. But I stream a lot as well. It's really fun. And I kind of just try and help people with design stuff. I'll play games. If you have any questions about, design or esports in general, feel free to reach out to me. Give me a DM. I will gladly try and help you to the best of my abilities. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and like I said before, we're gonna start streaming with you too.
Yeah.
We have to because now we all have Switches.
For sure.
Yeah, I got one final question.
Okay.
So for anyone that's like struggling in making graphics or even want to get their foot in the door with graphics, what do you have any advice for those people
Or
that
like
want
somewhere you can point them to.
Yeah.
So somewhere to point them to, I think YouTube is really good. If you have the money to spend on it, I think lynda.com is phenomenal. I think also just, like I said, like find something that you really like, whether it's, do you like sports or do you like, just traditional graphic design, like in magazines or stuff. Find something that you really connect with that you would like, see yourself doing and try and recreate it. Like think about it, like break it down. Like, okay, how would they do this? Like what tools did they use? Could I make this in a different color? Like what works about it? Really try and just look at random things. Like if I go like grocery shopping, like I'll just like stare at packaging for like 2 minutes and be like, whoa, this is cool. So just like try and take things from everyday life and try and really look at it and see what you could do with it. And then just mess around. Like just break Photoshop as much as you possibly can. Just screw around with it. And yeah, just completely mess around.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you, dude.
It was great seeing you.
Yes.
Great catching up because you're off in Florida doing big things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just cool to see that like one of our guys, like one of our crew is out there doing that. So it's really exciting.
Thank you.
We're really happy for you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for everybody for watching or listening. Make sure to follow this guy in the Overwatch League because it's on the rise, everybody. It really is. So thank you again, and we'll see you soon.